Broadcasting the information the mainstream media won't touch. This is The Richie Allen Show in association with DavidIke.com.
We're very excited about speaking with our next guest. Most of us have seen as a terrific documentary, Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, which came out about 5 years ago. I remember watching it, which told the story of our next guest's 60-day juice fast. He was very, very, very unhealthy at one time. That was terrific. It's been seen by more than 20 million people worldwide. The incredible response to that inspired my next guest to create Reboot even with Joe, which gives the tools, the info and the support to anybody who wants to maintain and indeed reclaim their well-being. He's hugely popular. He's in London at the moment to promote his next film, which is really important, and it's called The Kids Menu. And we were offered, thankfully, and very lucky to be offered a chance to watch an advance screening of it. It's absolutely brilliant. It's absolutely vital. In London, let's welcome to the programme Joe Cross. Joe, good day. How are you?
G'day, Richie. Thanks for having me on the show, mate. Great to be here.
Delighted.
Love a live show, Richie. Love a live show.
Live is great, isn't it? There's nothing like live. There's nothing like
being alive either, pal.
No, there certainly isn't. We're going to get a lot of tweets. I'm just going to shout out the Twitter handle again. It's at Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Email richie at richieallen.co.uk. You inspired a lot of people, Joe. And a good place to start is with, I suppose, at the time when you weren't so healthy, my friend.
No, I wasn't. It was... It's going back a ways now. I'm 50 now, Richie, so I've hit the half-century mark, mate. And we have to go back to when I was in my early 30s. Around 32, in fact, is when I first got sick. I came down with this chronic autoimmune disease called chronic urticaria angioedema, which is just a fancy way of saying chronic hives. I had a severe case where my body was just always lit up. There was no going back. It was just always on fire with hives, very deep hives under the skin that would also work their way into the joints, and just a terrible illness you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. And I had to take about 60 milligrams of powerful steroids called prednisone morning and night just to be able to get by. And getting by to me was making sure that I didn't touch anything with a lot of pressure, because my issue was brought on by physical pressure. So a seatbelt, holding a baby, picking up the groceries, a suitcase, a belt being too tight around the waist, standing on your feet on a sandy beach, and just terrible, terrible things of disease of touch. And I had this for 8 long years, from the age of 32 to 40. And it was just before my 40th birthday. Well, it was actually on my 40th birthday that I had this awakening that, I was basically 24 stone. I was loaded up on all these drugs, 6 or 7 drugs a day, morning and night. And, I was fat, sick, and I already had one foot in the grave. I had high cholesterol, high blood pressure. I was pre-diabetic. I was a walking time bomb. And I sort of said to myself, boy, what have I done wrong here? I thought I was a smart guy, but I'm actually pretty stupid. And what I did was I went back and looked at the whole departure from Mother Nature that I had done. Effectively when I was 20 years of age, Richie, I'd sort of said goodbye to Mother Nature and her plants. And I lived on a diet of high processed food, lots of animal product, lots of, sugar to get by and get the highs to keep going. Very not much exercise, poor sleep, high stress jobs. I mean, the rules. This is the majority of people nowadays. And so I standing in that mirror on my 40th birthday, I sort of thought I was a smart guy with all the money I'd made and the businesses I created, but I realized I was actually a pretty dumb guy. And so this journey began for me. Now, it wasn't until I was 41 that I actually just made the change. So I really had the illness from sort of late, just before I turned 33, right up to 41. So it was 8 long years is when I had this illness for. And I decided to go back to basics and just live on a diet that was fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, seeds, and whole grains, like plant food made by Mother Nature. And to supercharge this journey, which I basically came up with the idea that I've done 20 years of hammering myself, I should do like 2 years of just the plants to see if I can get well. And, 70% of all illness today Richie, is caused by our lifestyle choices, and therefore 30% means you're just unlucky, and it's just like you got it no matter what. And I didn't know which camp I found myself in, so the only way to experiment was to do something like this. So I gave myself like 2 years to what I call fruit and veggie prison, but to supercharge my sentence for being a bad boy all those years, I gave myself 60 days of just drinking the juice from the plants. So as it turned out, and this is in my movie Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead that's been seen by, as you said, more than 20 million people.
It's some film, Joe. It's absolutely brilliant, mate.
Exactly,
it's must watch it. Yeah.
I did the 60 days of juice, and then I was going to do another 22 months of just eating the plants. But guess what? I didn't need to. I only needed another 90 days. So it was 60 days of juice plus 90 days of eating fruits, vegetables, nuts, beans, and seeds. I had lost a mammoth, 10 stone, 11 stone, and I was basically off all medication. Actually, it was 9 stone I lost, right? Because I'm doing the maths in my head as I go on.
Can I just jump in quickly, Joe? This is brilliant stuff, by the way. So that weight was lost in a very short space of time. So that you are, of course, eating. You're eating. You're now consuming. Things that are very, very good for your body. This is great, and you're not ingesting the crap. However, it's a big weight loss in a short space of time. Was anybody alarmed at that? Was your doctor worried about that at all?
Yeah, so it was a really good point, and I've had lots of discussions since. At the time, when the doctor is in the movie and you see him, Dr. Joel Furman, monitoring everything, what I've learned since about weight loss and weight gain is that one of the reasons why gaining weight is such a detrimental thing for your health is because as you layer fat down and deposit it all over your body, the way it gets there to those cells is through your blood flow and your artery system. And so as that extra fat is going through the arteries, that's how we build up our plaque, Richie, right? That's where this excess of fat in our blood gets layered on our arteries, and that's why we have things like high blood pressure and so many cardiovascular diseases, whether it's heart disease or stroke. And so when you put weight on, say if you gain a stone, you are laying down all that fat and plaque. When you lose a stone quickly, like say I was, that plaque doesn't go away quickly. It takes time to regress, and it can take up to 6 months to see significant regression in the plaque. So here's the rub. If you lose the weight quickly and you keep it off, for at least 6 months, fantastic. But if you lose the weight and then you put it back on just as quick, it's the putting it back on that is more detrimental to your health. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Yeah. It does. And I've had personal experience with this, but the listeners don't want to hear that, and you don't want to hear it either. But this is fascinating. Pippa King was on Twitter to say, this is an amazing guest, Richie. I've watched both Joe's films. Brilliant. I did a juice fast in 2014, and now I juice regularly myself. At Richie Allen Show on Twitter. Loads of interest in this. Zana in New Zealand is listening to this. She's a Kiwi, but she's a good sort, Joe, because she's a big fan of the films and of your books. Joe's written several books as well. By the way, his website, folks, is rebootwithjoe.com. Get on there, rebootwithjoe.com. And Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, you can watch it on Netflix. It's available on Netflix. We don't endorse any of these platforms, but it just so happens that I happen to be a Netflix subscriber myself, and it's where I saw the film. It's absolutely terrific. It's brilliant. It really is. So Joe Cross is on the line to us from London. He's in London promoting the kids menu. Joe, you just touched on something really important there a few minutes ago, and our listeners want to take you up on it. It is true that the vast majority of ailments, simple, complicated or deadly serious, can be traced back to what we put in our bodies. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. The World Health Organization estimates that 70% of disease is caused by our lifestyle choices. And here are the lifestyle choices. There's the big three, which is smoking, what we eat and drink, which is counted as one, and how much exercise we do or don't do. So there's your three, right? Exercise, food and drink, and smoking. Then the next three, which is grouped in, is your lack of sleep, your disconnection and loneliness from society, not being part of a community, and then the way you manage your stress. So they're the big 6 factors. There are other factors, environment and so on, that are lifestyle choices, but they're the big ones. And if you think about that, just think about the fact of how much pain and suffering and misery is going on out there because we are doing it ourselves through our own free will. I mean, I don't know too many people who are force-fed a pizza or a burger or a chocolate shake, Richie, you know. I haven't met anyone who's been tied down in their bed and, had a funnel put in their mouth to push a pizza down. We do this with our own hand. We do this of our own volition. And it's a really fascinating area when so many of us know something is what we should be doing, like we know it, but we just don't do it. And I always say there's a big difference between the knowing it and doing it.
I might sound like an idiot now, Joe. Sorry to interrupt you. And if I sound like an idiot, shoot me down. I hear what you're saying about, we put stuff in, we eat stuff, we know it's deadly. And I'm going to agree with you and slightly disagree because I'm lucky enough that I'm kind of moderately, well educated. I know what's crap, Joe. But I guess a lot of people from poorer backgrounds, not because of any lack of intelligence, we all have the same intelligence, but because of lack of access to information, they don't know that a lot of what they're eating is really devastating, do they?
Well, let me say this, and I hear what you're saying, Richie, and I'd say this because I agree. I'm going to agree with your comment in the main. But here's what I find, and I've done this on the front lines for the last 4 years, out making movies and talking to people. I've never met anyone who doesn't know that fruits and vegetables aren't good for them. Okay, I've never met anyone who didn't know they were good for you.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Okay, so they know they're good. But the average American, I don't know my UK data, but I can tell you the average American is getting 1 calorie out of 17 calories is plant food. The other 16 are either processed food or animal product. So that's the percentages, just 1 in 17. So they know it. Now, what the point that I'm going to agree 100% with you on about the not knowing part is that I meet so many people who say, you know what, Joe, I know that this produce is good for me, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to make something tasty. I don't know which oil to use and what not to use. I don't know if eggs are good for me or not good for me. There's so much information in the media about what's good, what's not good. There's so much confusion out there. And so you have so many people at a loss for what to do. So they know it. There's that knowing. They know, oh, I've got to eat more salad. I've got to eat more greens. I know this is good for me. I inherently know that going to a burger place and having a Big Mac or a Big Whopper or whatever, I know that can't be healthy for me, okay? But they don't know how to make the change.
Yeah.
That's our huge education gap.
And they're addicted, Joe, aren't they? Because you just mentioned the Big Mac there. What a lot of people don't know is how much of this absolute garbage, how much of it has a very high sugar content. They don't even know. I was talking to my fiancée Caroline the other day. I go to the supermarket, Joe. There are no markets around me. I live in the city. This is terrible. Now, you address all this in your books. And by the way, folks, this guy is absolutely amazing. If you got a question for Joe, Joe is with us for about another 20, 25 minutes. At least that's if he can stay for another 25 minutes.
Good,
yeah. So tweet me at Richie Allen Show. Ask a question to Joe. You won't get this chance again. The website is rebootwithjoe.com. But I'm saying to Caroline, Joe, right? So I'm out and about and we're surrounded by supermarkets. There are no greengrocers. Right, okay, I know the supermarket has a vegetable section and we buy salads and we buy vegetables all the time as fresh as we can. But you go around the supermarket, nearly everything you pick up, you mentioned processed foods earlier on, nearly everything, Joe, has got a sugar content to it. What is going on with that? How are they getting away with that? Sugar is in everything.
I mean, the reality is that for us, we have there's a thing called the bliss point, which is the combination of sugar, fat, and salt that basically was invented in the late 60s. And I actually met the guy, his name's Howard Mockowitz. I hope I've got his surname spelt right, or pronounced right. And I interviewed him for my second last movie. And here he was working out the exact formulas that these chemical companies, or they are these food processing companies, which are basically chemical companies, that they need to put in this sugar, fat, salt. Like to make a Mars bar, there is a science to exactly how much you need to have of what to make it hit our bliss point in our brain. So we are programmed. Richie, to try and get as many calories in a compact environment into our body as possible. That's what we've been doing for all the hundreds of thousands of years we've been human on this planet. It's only the last 60, 70 years that we have done such an incredible job technology-wise of putting 10,000 calories into a cardboard box and calling it a pizza with the lot, you know?
Yeah.
We have mastered the compact of energy. The problem is it's empty energy. It's empty because it's been cooked, it's been bleached, it's been processed, and it's been murdered. The nutrients of value that are in these foods are no longer present, which is why if you eat foods that are more in their natural state, i.e. whole foods, you will get full quickly because you're going to get a lot of dietary fiber. You will get the satisfaction of the micronutrient intake and your body will crave less. It's hard at the beginning because we're all, not all of us, but 99% of us are addicted to caffeine, sugar, salt, fat, oils. We're addicted. We are absolutely addicted. If we don't have it, Richie, we feel uncomfortable. Okay?
That's true. That's
agitated.
True. Yeah.
We get headaches. We can't think clearly. The chocolate bar, the coffee, the whatever it is, the cake, it obsesses us in our minds, and it's there and it's present. And so this really is a setup where it's so easy to fail in today's world. I mean, you just got to go to a mall to look at the way the escalators. You don't need to walk upstairs anymore. Everywhere you go, it's about expending the least amount of calories in energy and taking in the most amount of energy and calories. That's what the whole game is now, which is why, us humans, we've fallen into this trap of not being mindful of our surroundings, and we are perilously close to. I think the reality is, you look at the data, we are actually our own worst enemy when it comes to our own health and death. I mean, we create way more death through heart disease, cancer, stroke, from actions to ourselves than any other, terrorist group or plane crashes or guns or car accidents or anything else.
We've got loads of tweets, Joe. It's 24 minutes past the hour, so I'm going to read a few of these. Charles Bruno said to say hi to you, by the way.
Oh, Charlie's legend. Charlie's lost. I think Charlie's lost in the vicinity of like 12 stone. Incredible story.
And folks, this is the thing, right? If you've not seen Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, and you have Netflix or you can rent it, watch it, because there's no bullshit here. This isn't one of these, self-help nonsense things which you spend a fortune on. This is true, and I've seen this in action myself. It's incredible. Go to rebootwithjoe.com. Let's get through some of these tweets now. Right. In a minute, we're going to deal with the myth about expense, Joe, because Wayne was on to say Burger King is cheaper than vegetables, fruit or good meat. £2, most will get fruit and veg every day. £2 will get you your Burger King and all that nonsense, but you can't get your fruit and veg for £2. And we'll come back to that in a second, because that's a serious point and I don't want to just dismiss that. Jane was on to say you can cure almost anything with your diet, but it's easier for some people to take a pill. People are also brainwashed by the white coats and by the chemicals. Himanshi is listening to this in just outside Delhi in India. Good morning again, Himanshi. I tell my friends, she says, not to eat junk food, but I'm in the minority. I've not had it for 1.5 years. Well, I'm proud to say that's me, Richie Allen, that I've not eaten Burger King and McDonald's for the best part of 10 years now, and I would never go near it again. Rosie says, hi Rosie, I was diagnosed with Crohn's in 2014. I switched to a clean vegan diet and I have not looked back. My doctor still says that it isn't food related. I'll read one or two more of these, Joe, and then we'll come back to this idea that to eat healthy and to eat properly is being priced out of our reach. Now, a lot of our listeners will believe that. Number of people criticising McDonald's. Millie was on to say, block capital letters, one word, meat. Now, I know Millie is a vegan, and there are a lot of vegans listening to this programme. You're a vegan, Joe. I believe you're a vegan. Are you a vegan?
No, I'm actually not.
You're not.
No. I'm not a strict vegan by any means. I'm vegan for a lot of the year, but I'm not a strict vegan. I don't put a title on how I eat, but that's cool. I'm happy with people do.
Fair enough. Yeah, a lot of our listeners are vegans. So let's address the ideas then that to do it properly for a family of four, Joe, two adults, two children, it's far too expensive, and in fact, doing it the wrong way is affordable, and that's why we do it the wrong way.
Yeah. So look, you're hitting on two major points, which is price and convenience. And that's what the fast food industry has done a phenomenal job of hitting those two pressure points in modern day society, which is why so many people live on that food. So let's really look at the cost and what's happening. So, a lot of this is government sponsored. The government is sponsoring the raw materials that are going into, say, the fast food industry, particularly in the US, with subsidized crops for corn, soybeans, and wheat. And if you want to grow avocados or strawberries, good luck. You won't get any help there. But you'll get the help for creating the crops that the fast food industry needs and to survive on. Whether it's Coca-Cola, whether it's McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, whatever. These crops are enabling, and those prices being kept low, are enabling the price of the fast food to be low. Look at the cost. See, there's two ways to measure the cost, Richie. You can measure the cost from pounds and dollars, or you can measure it from your health, okay? So there is a lot of other added cost that goes in, and cost to the environment as well when we talk about fast food. So while I understand that in the initial stages, of course, it's cheaper to get 99-cent pizza or a pound Whopper or whatever that number is, versus the effort and the time it takes to going into the market, to getting the produce, to coming home, to sitting down as a family and getting involved and all that. What I'll say is this, and I don't know the data in the UK, and I apologise for that, but I'll say this. The US spend 6% of their disposable income on food. They have the cheapest food in the world, okay? 6%. You go back 30 years ago, they were spending 19% of their disposable income on food. I would push back and say, where's the priorities? Why does everyone need the latest iPhone, the iPad? Where's the money being spent, Richie?
Yeah.
And if you think about how important your health is, when you think about your kids and you say, you know what, I want my kids to be happy, I want them to be happy, well, being healthy is being happy. And so my view would be is that, yes, I know that right at the price point when you hand over the money at the counter, it is cheaper. But there are ways of making eating plant food at home a lot more reasonable. Buying in bulk, getting 10 neighbours, 20 neighbours together, getting into a community where you buy together at a farmer's market, getting to know your farmer, getting to know people who are growing these crops, that you take your kids out, get them involved in it, and all of a sudden you get to become friends with these guys and they go, listen, we've got so much kale this week, come and grab a big bucket. So these things are going on today with people who actually are out there willing to want to make a difference. Now, if your mums and dads are at home who've got two jobs and are strapped, I get it. It's very, very difficult. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm certainly not saying that.
Joe, this is brilliant. It's a fair answer too. You're right, the other cost that we don't factor in when we say it's cheaper to eat the fast food, or we don't factor in all the hypertension pills that you need to take and all the other pills that you need to take because you're eating crap. That's spot on. 1:30. Graham Lawrence tweets this. He says, Joe, you look great. Do you work out? Do you work out as well as, look after the diet?
So here's the thing, Graham. I started off my journey, and I'm going to do it in pounds because it's easier, so you can just take the dividing by the 14 for the stone. And maybe, Richie, you can do that. But I started out at 320, 330 pounds was my high. When we started filming, I was 310 pounds. I got down as low as 220 pounds at my low. I sit now at around 245, 250 pounds. So that's the sort of weight where I'm at. Now, if I worked out as well as I ate, okay, so if we put my eating, I'd say my eating is like 8.5, 9 out of 10, my diet. I don't eat junk. The biggest complaint I could say about my eating would be the volume of what I eat. And I eat a lot of really good, nourishing, nutrient food. I juice a lot. I do smoothies a lot. I eat lots of salad. I've had a beautiful salad here in London tonight, just massive salad, right? So I'm doing all those things. If I was scoring 8.5 out of 10 in my exercise, I'd be able to run through brick walls. I'm not. My problem is that I've got to be better at exercise. I work out, 2-3 times a week. I'd like it to be 5-6 times a week. I'd like it to be more consistent. So the answer is I do, but I'm not as good as I should be or would like to be. And that's probably the big area of my life that I'm always working on.
But the diet, though, it's fantastic. It really is. It's at Richie Allen's show. Chris was on to say on Twitter, McDonald's and Burger King, etc., they scientifically augment their products to make them addictive. Says Chris. Of course they do, Chris. They've whole laboratories of people working on stuff like that to keep the children begging. The nag factor is something else as well they work on with kids as well. It is difficult. But ultimately, you got to ask the question, what Chris is saying, what Joe Cross is saying is absolutely right. Is it worth it? So if you deprive yourself of, the $600 smartphone or the 70-inch television screen when maybe a 24 or 32-inch television screen will suffice, these are ways to direct more of your disposable income towards eating properly. These are brilliant. These are brilliant points. And
look, Richie,
go ahead, Joe.
I'll tell you something else for nothing. Is that when people get clean in their diet, their brain works better. They're more productive. They're more focused. They look happier. They look better. And so prospects for employment, opportunities at work, it's incredible how many people I've met along the way that when they change their diet, their whole life changes. It's not just some pounds come off or they kick back some medications, most people today feel that if you've been, given diabetes type 2 as like, you're told by your doctor you're a diabetic and you've got type 2 diabetes, you got it for life. Now, that's absolute garbage, absolute garbage. I can tell you now it is not a death sentence. It's so many people I know have changed their diet and have reduced their diabetes to zero, like absolutely none. In fact, I saw a tweet on your page that is, diabetes is juicing bad for diabetics. And
just going to bring that up, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the reality is that we have actually at Reboot we have a guided reboot for diabetics, and it's an English nutritionist called Raya who takes people through that, and it's a 60-day program, and our results are off the chart. Bottom line, the answer is no. Remember, when we talk about juice, we're talking about lots of veggie juice, not knocking 8 oranges.
Of course, yeah.
Put in through a juicer. So, look, the reality is, from our point of view, very simple, is that a lot of these illnesses, 70% of all people out there suffering right now, if they were to put themselves into a frame of mind where they're just consuming plants, moving more, sleeping more, getting off the smokes and so on, it's worth a shot, Richie. It's worth a shot.
It is. And I've noticed that there are 1 or 2 tweets, not many, but we're a democratic program, so we acknowledge everybody. There are 1 or 2 people who are angry at this. They're angry in saying that, look, we can't afford it. But Joe explained in great detail, governments deliberately keep crap food cheap. Now, I don't know, whether Joe would go along with a lot of what, has been said on this program in previous years, by David Icke and others, that there's an agenda to keep people sick. I believe there is an agenda to keep people sick. What Joe is saying is, look, there's a reason why the crap food is cheap. Governments make it like that. Whatever the reason might be, they do make it like that. But it's all about priorities.
So
I can see the angle, but I understand.
Yeah, look, I can understand that, and I believe in supply and demand theory. That's what I believe, right? And the reality is that if you give something to somebody that tastes amazing, that hits the right spots with the sugar, the fat, and the salt, and you give it to them enough, it becomes addictive. And it's all about money. Unfortunately, Richie, a lot of our world revolves around bloody money. And so I'm not disagreeing with you when it's in the interests of tremendous powers that be to keep people sick.
Yeah.
It's in the interests in places like America to keep people in jail. These jails over there, they're all privately run. They're private companies. I mean, if there's no one in jail, these companies go broke. So do you reckon those shareholders want people out of jail? So it's the same thing with pharmaceutical companies. People want people sick so they can sell them something. There's not a lot of money in wellness. There's not a lot of money in people being healthy. There really isn't, unless you're running a hiking company, you know? So the reality is I agree with all of that, but I don't think it's worth giving up. And I think the best way to change the world is to change yourself. And I understand that frustration of people who feel that there's not a lot of money around. So let me tell you about, in the movie Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, we got Phil, who was a truck driver. He bought a $150 juicer, so that'd be like 120 pounds. And it was $14 a day, so that's about £9.
Yeah, about $9.50, yeah, something like that, yeah.
So $9.50, £10 a day. And that's what he did for 60 days and changed his life. So I'm also of the view that, you know, there's a lot of pints being drunk tonight, a lot of packets of cigarettes being bought today. There's a lot of money going to places which is, you know, entertainment.
And you know what, Joe? That's a great point, because we haven't even touched on that. I've got to give website details again just before I ask you this. Folks, go to rebootwithjoe.com. It's a website that's packed full of really, really, really good information. It really is. Joe's in London and he's promoting his new film called The Kids Menu. Kidsmenumovie.com is where you'll see the trailer for it. Kidsmenumovie.com. You know, alcohol, Joe. You know, a lot of people who do struggle, and I'm not, listen, I'm a working class boy here. I'm not a snob. I never have been and I never will be. I enjoy a rum and coke as much as the next guy. But a lot of people who say they don't have money for stuff, they manage to find money for booze, Joe. Now, I'm not saying that's everybody, but, it's some people. And if you can stop that and put that money towards, you know, spending more money on better things to eat every evening you come home from work, you know, how can that be a bad thing?
I hear you, mate. And look, I'm one of these guys that I like to focus on the positives in that. And I know there's a lot of people that are hurting out there, and you know, we have a lot of people that are suffering. And there's alcoholics, there's drug addicts, there's sugar addicts, there's all sorts of things, food addictions, and it's very sad. But I'm an optimistic person, and I believe that with the right support group, with the right inspirational, leaders and role models to look up to, armed with some information and a willingness to make a difference, it can be done.
Too right, it can be done. Stephen Higgins says, he agrees with you. Stephen says on Twitter, it's economies of scale. If I buy, or he says, I buy organic when I can. If enough people did that, the price would go down. I say if, says Stephen. Martin was on to say it's also worth pointing out that hospital food is shite, basically. It should be the most nutritious menu around. Why isn't it? That's a good question. But I do want to ask your opinion on genetically modified crops and Monsanto and the possibility, Joe. We're worried in the European Union here. You're an Aussie boy, and I'm an Irish boy, so I'm based in the European Union. I'm worried about the TTIP trade agreement coming in, which is going to open up European markets to Monsanto. And I'm worried about people thinking in the future that they're really doing well for themselves when they're buying GM vegetables and fruits, and in fact they're not. Is that something you have tackled, or you want to tackle, or is it something you're looking at as far as the future goes?
So it's definitely something that we get asked a lot about, and I haven't done the deep dive on it yet, but it is a frightening prospect, what you're talking about for the European Union to be exposed to. We don't need to worry about it so much in Australia, as you know, but from a US perspective, it is frightening that, you know, these three big companies, Arthur Daniels, Midland, Cargill, and Monsanto, right? You know,
those are the three, yeah, the Holy Trinity, or the unholy Trinity.
Yeah, they control so much of our seeds. It really is to a point where, you know, I didn't know anyone could own a seed. You know what I mean? I thought that was Mother Nature.
Yeah.
And so I don't know enough to be able to comment in super intelligently, other than to say that I'm of the belief that if you can keep them out, you keep them out. If you can't, then it's tragic. But I'm I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the answer is when you're up against such power. I know that in the California recently, they tried to have a vote in one of the propositions to overturn, and they got beaten. And it's just like, wow, the power of money.
They spend enormous amounts of money. Californian citizens overwhelmingly want their products to be labelled. So if they buy a bottle of anything and there's any GM ingredients in it, they want it to be properly labelled. And yet, as you just quite rightly said there, those three companies, they spend tens of millions in advertising to beat that. To beat those initiatives, and they win time and time again. They're the most extraordinary. Monsanto are extraordinary. It's a company who just will not do an interview with anybody. They won't speak to anybody. They will not sue anybody for libel. You can say anything about them. It doesn't matter. And they just laugh and they just ignore. And but I'm glad you answered that. I'm glad I want to mention, folks, as well, on Joe's website there are books. Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead Itself, Reboot with Joe recipe book is available. 101 juice recipes, and the Reboot with Joe juice diet. Lose weight, get healthy, and feel amazing. This is very, very, very serious stuff. Mate, I'm going to give you the last word on it. I must also say, folks, kidsmenumovie.com. Joe's in London promoting his new film. The trailer is on there. I can't wait to see it. Joe, I'll give you the final word, my friend. I'm sure you've had a busy day and other things to do, so you have the final word. Go ahead.
Well, I'm actually in London for another reason as well. I've got a new book coming out, and I'm excited about my new book. It's called Juice It to Lose It. It's a 5-day plan and it really deals with that, getting organised, and so many people want to start. So I'm hopeful that this book that could be read, could be read in a 2-hour tube read. Really, it's a very short little book on all the things to overcome to try and get a 5-day plan under your belt. So with that, I'm excited about that. But the kids menu, which is coming to Netflix real soon, it's on iTunes at the moment and a lot of other paid video on demand platforms. I wanted to go out and make a movie that was going to really help families with their kids and find out ways that we can get this next generation to be stronger, healthier, happier. And as you say, Richie, you've seen the movie, so you know the work I've put into it. I'm really proud of it. And, I can't wait. I think Netflix is coming up at the 1st of May. It'll be released on Netflix. And I can't wait for it to go viral on that platform, because I really think that's one of those movies that kids can sit down and watch it. Mums and dads are going to watch it. And even if you're just like a tragic food junkie and health junkie like I am, they'll enjoy it. So I'm super excited about it.
I tell you what, Joe, you're doing an enormous amount to educate children and to bring this information to kids and get them thinking about what it is they eat. And I think children they're wide open to this. They really are. I think the earlier you get children thinking about this sort of stuff, the more likely they'll stay away from the crap, from the crisps, potato chips, whatever you call them, and the McDonald's and all the rest of it. Rebootwithjoe.com is the main website to find out more about Joe. Real pleasure, mate. Look after yourself and continued success to you.
Good on you, mate. All the best and juice on, all right?
Will indeed, Joe. Thanks for that. Joe Cross on the line to us there from London. As I said, rebootwithjoe.com.